Hello everyone. Welcome to today's lecture of Object-Oriented Programming using Java with the paper code CS504A. This is Shayani Chandra, Assistant Professor of Department of Computer Science and Engineering of Guru Nanak Institute of Technology. Let's look at today's lecture contents. Today we will learn about the concepts of this keyword, how to use this keyword in a Java program. Then we will learn about the garbage collection that are automatically done in Java by the application of finalize method. Then we will go back to our previous lecture and we will learn about some additional features of constructors, and then we will also do some example programs to implement all those features. Let's first learn about this keyword in today's lecture. This keyword is used to implement two things in Java. This keyword has two main uses in Java. The first one says that this keyword can be used to invoke the current class current class object. Whenever an object of the current class is being created, this keyword can be used to invoke or call that current class object. So let us do an example program to better understand the concept of this keyword. Here is a sample program that you can see. I have done this program without using this keyword. So let me first explain this program and then let me tell you how you can use this keyword here in this program in order to invoke the current object. So here this A is an example class. This is a user defined class. Inside this class we have declared two instance variables, each of which is of integer type, and the variables are A and B. This is a parameterized constructor that is used here in order to assign some values into the instance variables A and B. And the values that have been assigned into the instance variables A and B are the parameters of the constructor. Then I have taken a method which is a normal method which has no return type. This will just print the values of A and B. Obviously you can print these values of A and B inside the constructor, but I have taken a different method to show you that this thing you can also do in your program, that only the initialization or value assignment steps are being done inside the parameterized constructor body, and then we are printing the values of the variables inside the method. This thing you can also do, or if you want you can also do the all the things, that means the value assignment statements as well as the system.out.println statements. You can also write all these three statements inside the constructor body. This demo is the main class name because inside this class the main method is there, and inside the main method we have created an object ob of this class A, and we have passed the values 10 and 20 here in the constructor calling part. And so 10 will be passed into the parameter x and 20 will be passed into the parameter y. So then the value of x, which is 10, will be assigned into the instance variable A, and the value of y, which is 20, will be assigned into the variable B. Now, using the object, the method is being called. So this program should give you the output of A as 10 and the value of B will be printed as 20. So this program should give you the output as 10s. After that a space will be printed and then 20 will be printed on screen. So let me execute the program to show you the output. Here you can see that I have compiled and executed the program and it is giving you the outputs 10 and 20 just as described by me. Now let me do this program using two objects and let me pass two different sets of values using the two objects into the parameters of the parameterized constructor A. So the same program I have written using two different objects, OB1 and OB2. Using the object OB1, I have passed a set of values 10 and 20 into the variables A and B. And using the second object OB2, I have passed a different set of values 3 and 6 into the variables A and B. Then using both the objects, I have called the show method. So let me execute the program to show you the output. Here it is, the program has been executed, and as I have called both the methods, sorry, as I have called the show method using both the objects, so it is giving you two different outputs, the values that have been passed into the variables a and b using the object ob1. That output is shown in the first line, which is 10 space 20, and the values that we have passed using the second object ob2 into the variables a and b are 3 and 6, and that values are being shown in the second line as output, which are 3 and 6. Now let us come to the concept of this keyword. Just as I told that this keyword can be used to invoke the current object. Now here there are two objects in the program, ob1 and ob2. So when we will be dealing with the object ob1, that means the current object will be the object ob1, and when we will be dealing with the object ob2, that means the current object will be then ob2. Now let me use the this keyword. Here I have used the this keywords before the instance variables inside the body of the parameterized constructor. You can also use the this keyword inside the body of a method before the instance variables also. Now here you can see that whenever we are dealing with this program, when this object ob1 is taken into account, when this object is being dealt with, that means we are dealing with the values 10 20. So when this object is taken into account, which is ob1, then using this before the instance variable a is actually this use of this keyword here will uh, explicitly remind the compiler that currently you are dealing with object ob1, because I have already told that this keyword is used to invoke the current class object, current object. That means whenever we are dealing with ob1, this keyword will call the current object, which is ob1. That means this keyword will invoke the current object, which is ob1, and invoking means that it will make the compiler understand explicitly that currently we are dealing with the object ob1 and the set of values that have been passed into the instance variables a and b using the object ob1. That means using this keyword before the instance variable a means that this keyword here will make the compiler understand that currently we are dealing with object ob1, and before this a instance variable we have used this keyword means that using the object ob1 we are passing the value 10 into this instance variable a. So the compiler is currently dealing with the value 10, which have been passed into the instance variable a using the object ob1, which is the current object which we are currently dealing with. This is the use of this keyword if it is used before the instance variable here in this program. And the same goes for this b instance variable also. If you use this keyword before this b variable, then this will make the compiler understand that currently you are dealing with the object ob1, and using the object ob1 you are passing the value 20 into the instance variable b. So currently you are dealing with the value 20, which have been passed into the instance variable b using the object ob1. So this is the use of this keyword before the b variable. Then in the next statement, when we are dealing with the object ob2, then using this keyword before this a variable will remind the compiler that currently you are dealing with the object ob2 and a value 3 has been passed into the instance variable a, which is a value that has been passed into a using the object ob2, which is the current object. Same is the case with this keyword before this b variable also. This will make the compiler understand explicitly that currently you are dealing with object ob2 and a value 6 has been passed to the instance variable b using the current object ob2. Now if you don't use this keyword before this these two variables a and b, then also the compiler will automatically assume that when it is dealing with the object ob1 and when it is dealing with the object ob2, So there will not be any problem for the compiler to understand automatically or by its own which object it is currently dealing with and which values to be passed into the instance variables. But if you give this keyword, then it will just make the compiler understand explicitly that currently you are dealing with this object, which is the current object. So here we can say that the use of this keyword is redundant, because even if you not use this keyword before the instance variables here, then also the program will work fine. And if you use this keyword before the two instance variables, then also it will give you the same output. So let me execute the program to show you that using this keyword before the two instance variables in this program will give you the same output as the one which was written by me just a bit before without using this keyword. I have executed the program. You can see that the same output is being shown here, 10, 20, 3, 6, like this. So no change in output is there, because whether you use this keyword here in this program or not, that will not have any effect on the execution or compilation of the program, because the compiler and JVM are equipped enough to differentiate between the two or multiple objects that are being used in a program. And whenever a particular object is coming into picture, then the compiler will automatically understand which object it is currently dealing with, and the values that have to be passed into the instance variables will be those values that are being passed to those instance variables using the current object. So in this case you don't need to use this keyword, because if you use this keyword, then also you are going to get the same output. If you are not using this keyword, then also you are going to get the same output, because the compiler and JVM are equipped enough to make the differentiation between multiple objects. So here a question that come to your mind is that how many objects of a class that we can make. You can create innumerable number of objects of a particular class according to your requirement. In this program you have seen that I have created two objects, because my motto was to show you the usage of this keyword in this program, the redundant usage of this keyword in this program. But if I want, then I can also create more number of objects to show you the difference between using this keyword in this program and not using this keyword in this program. Because it is not required, so I have just used only two objects. If any program requires, then you can also create more number of objects. So here you have seen that one of the usages of this keyword in a Java program, the use that I have shown you is a redundant use, because if you use this keyword here, then also it is going to give you the same output. If you are not using it, then also you are going to get the same output. Now let's show you an example program where you will see that if you are not using this keyword in that program, then it is going to give you a compile time error. In that case, using this keyword is compulsory. Here you can see that the same program has been written with with a little bit change, that inside the parameter of the constructors I have written the same variable names as the instance variable names. The instance variable names are here a and b, and the parameter names were x and y in the previous example. Here I have changed it and I have made it a and b. That means the instance variable names and the parameter names are same now. So inside the constructor body, inside the initialization or value assignment statements, it should look like a equal to a and b equal to b. This is where the problem will arise when you are making the names of the parameters, or more specifically the local variables, same as that of the instance variables. So why the problem will arise? The reason is that whenever the names of the instance variables of a class and the local variables or parameters of a constructor or of a method are same, then the local variable always gets the priority. And as the local variable gets the priority, so local variables will hide the instance variables. And in that case, whenever the inside the body of this constructor, whenever this value assignment statements will be executed, this left hand sides are the instance variables and the right hand sides are the local variables or the parameters. And as the local variables are getting the priority, and as they have already hidden the instance variables, so the left hand sides, that means these A and B, can never be reached by the compiler or the JVM. So if they can never be reached, then they can never be assigned with some values. If you cannot assign some values, then obviously you are going to get some errors. So in this program, you will see that as the instance variables are hidden by these local variables or these parameters, so you can never get the actual output that you want to get. So in this case, the instance variables will be hidden by the local variables. As because the instance variables are hidden, no value assignment can be done. That means this program is not going to give you the correct output that you want to see. So in this case, you have to use this keyword before the instance variable names. So this keyword is basically used here in this program in order to prevent the instance variable hiding by the local variables. Whenever this situation will arise, you have to use this keyword before the instance variable names in order to make them visible by the compiler or the interpreter, that is JVM. If you use this keyword before the instance variable, then this local variable cannot hide the instance variable. And if you use this keyword before the instance variable A, then the compiler will assume that this left hand side A is the instance variable and this right hand side A is the parameter or the local variable. Similarly, if you use this keyword before the instance variable B, then the compiler will understand that this left hand side B is the instance variable B and the right hand side B is the local variable B. So if the compiler can understand this value assignment or initialization statement, then no problem, the program will work just in the same way that it had worked in the previous example. It will also give you the same output as the previous program, that is 1020 in the first line and 36 in the next line. So let's execute the program to see the output. Just as explained, it is giving you the same output as the previous program, which is 1020 in the first line and 36 in the next line. That means here in this program, the use of this keyword is not redundant. Here, in order to prevent the instance variable hiding by the local variables, you have to use this keyword. If you don't use this keyword here in this program, then the program is not going to give you the desired output. So this is one of the major uses of this keyword, where you have to use this keyword, otherwise this program is not going to run. This is another use of this keyword, where you will see that this keyword, the use of this keyword is compulsory. This keyword also has some other uses, like this here in the two programs I have shown you the two uses of this keyword, where you have seen that this is being used as a keyword. This can also be used as a method. This can also be used as a parameter that can be passed to a method or a constructor. So this keyword has many other uses also that I'll explain in some next lectures. So let's go to the next topic of today's lecture, which is finalize method and garbage collection. As you all know that in order to create an object, you have to allocate some memory. And that is the concept that goes in C++ language also. If you are creating any object in C++ language, then you have to allocate some memory. So whenever some memory allocation will be there, then that allocated memory should be deallocated if the memory is of no use. That means suppose you have created an object to do a program, then you have allocated some memory. Then after that, after some time, the program execution is completed and you no longer need that object. That means the allocated memory is no longer needed. Then in that case, you have to deallocate the memory in order to free the memory. Otherwise the memories will remain allocated, and the remaining memory will become more small in order to do the memory allocation for other programs or for other objects. So whatever memory is no longer needed, you have to deallocate those memory. Now, in case of C or C++, you have seen that the dynamic memory allocation is being done using malloc, calloc, and realloc functions. And whenever those dynamically allocated memories are no longer needed, they have to be freed using a function called free function. That means you have to write another statement of code which will be used to deallocate the memory. That is the case with C or C++ languages. But in case of Java, the allocated memory can be deallocated for you automatically. That means you don't need to write any explicit code or any explicit statement in order to do that memory deallocation. Whenever some memory is no longer needed, JVM will automatically deallocate that memory. Now, whenever some memory is no longer needed, that memory is treated as a garbage. Now, that garbage memory should be collected. Garbage collection means that the memory which is no longer needed should be collected or should be deallocated. Collected means deallocated. So that garbage collection or that memory deallocation is done in Java automatically by JVM for us. We don't need to write any explicit statement of code in order to do that deallocation. This is what we know as garbage collection in Java. That means the allocated memory which is no longer needed should be deallocated. That means the garbage memory should be collected. This is what we call garbage collection in Java. Garbage collection is done in Java automatically, unlike C or C++ languages. Now, this is why we call Java robust, because of the fact that garbage collection, which the concept was there in C or C++ languages also, but there you have to write explicit codes in order to do garbage collection. But here in Java, you don't need to write any code. You just have to wait for JVM to do the garbage collection for you. This is the reason why there is no concept of garbage values unlike C or C++ languages. Now let's see what is the use of finalize method in garbage collection. Suppose you have done a program, a Java program, and the file name you have given as demo.java. Suppose you have written a code of file reading in your program named demo.java, and the file that is currently in the disk from which you are reading its contents, and that file is a .txt file and its name is a.txt. Now this .txt file, it is a text file which is there in the hard disk, and this demo.java program is reading the contents of this text file. Now, whenever this program will be successfully executed and its execution, that means its execution will be completed, you may want to deallocate the memory that has been allocated for the objects that you have created inside this program. And I have already discussed that the garbage collection will be done for you automatically. Now, whenever the garbage collection will happen for this program, that means whenever this program's execution will be completed, then the memory that has been allocated for the objects that you have created inside this program will be no longer needed, and those memories should be deallocated. That means the garbage should be collected. Now you know that JVM does the garbage collection automatically for us, but one problem that will remain in this problem is that whenever the object's memory, the allocated memory for the object will be deallocated or the garbage will be collected, then this text file will also get deleted. That is because of the reason that that object that is reading the contents of this text file is holding the text file into itself. That means this demo.java file will hold the .txt file or this text file into itself in order to read the contents of this file. Now, whenever the garbage will be collected for this program, the .txt file or this text file will also get deleted. But that is not at all desired. You want to keep this text file inside the hard disk as it was, and you have to delete the memory that has been allocated for this program only. And in order to do this, Java uses a process known as finalization. And this finalization process is implemented in Java using the finalize method. This is the finalize method. Now, what happens when you use finalize method inside a Java program? Let me explain you this now. Inside this finalize method, you will have to write all those actions that should be performed before an object gets deleted. Like in this example, you need to remove all these non-Java files that have been attached to this Java file before this garbage is collected for this Java program. So obviously, if you don't detach this text file from this Java program before the garbage for this program is being collected by JVM, this text file will also get deleted. That means before removing the garbage for this program, you have to detach this text file from this Java file. This text file is a non-Java file or a non-Java resource. That means if your Java program is holding some non-Java resources, those non-Java resources must be detached from the Java program before the garbage for that program gets deleted. Now, all those actions need to be performed before the object gets deleted, and all those actions that need to be performed before the object gets deleted should be written inside the body of the finalize method. That means in this case, in this example that I have shown you just, that this non-Java resource must be freed from this Java program before the memory allocated for this Java program gets deleted, and that action needs to be performed before the object gets deleted. So you have to write down that action code inside this finalize method body. If you don't write this code inside the finalize method body, then this text file will also get deleted along with the memory that will be deleted by the JVM. So whatever actions you need to perform before an object gets deleted, you have to write all those actions inside this finalize method. Now let me explain how JVM performs the finalization process or the garbage collection process. So the Java runtime system or JVM will actually call this finalize method whenever it is about to recycle an object of that particular class. That means whenever it is to recycle this object of demo class, then the or any other class, then it will call this finalize method. There is a garbage collector inside the JVM that will run periodically, checking for objects that are no longer referenced by any running state or indirectly through other referenced objects. If it is so, then right before an asset is freed, the Java runtime calls the finalize method on the object in order to perform all those actions that are needed to be performed before the object gets deleted. Now the finalize method that I have just discussed has a general form. Let me write down the general form. This is the general syntax of the finalize method. This is the name of the method, which is finalize. This is the default return type of this method finalize, which is void. And this is the access specifier that is already defined for this method finalize. Now this finalize method resides in the system defined package java.lang. This is a system defined package, which is the lang package or language package that I'll discuss in the package chapter in detail. So this finalize method resides in this package, and this is the syntax of this finalize method. So whenever you will be using this finalize method in your program, you have to use it in this format. And inside this finalize method block or inside its body, you have to write down all those code that are needed to be executed before an object gets deleted, which is known as finalization code. So today you have learned about garbage collection also, and you have also seen that how garbage collection can be done in Java automatically by JVM, and we don't need to write any code for that. And if you need to perform any operations before the object gets deleted, just like the one I have explained here, that in this case, this non-Java resource must be freed from this Java file before this object or memory for this file or this program gets deleted. If you want to free this file from this Java file, then you have to write down this operation inside this finalize method body. And this is how this garbage collection works like. And this garbage collection is automatically done by JVM by calling the garbage collector. The default garbage collector will do this object dereferencing work automatically for us, and JVM before deleting the object will uh, use this finalization process in order to perform any operations that are needed to be performed before an object gets deleted. So in today's class, we have learned about this keyword, how this keyword can be used, and how garbage collection is done in Java automatically, and what is the use of finalize method in garbage collection. I have also told that this keyword has some other uses also that we will define, and that we will also explain using some example programs in some next lectures. So let us go back to our previous lecture, and let us do some example programs using constructors again, and let us learn some other features of constructors again. In this program, we can see that the student is a user defined class. Inside the student class, we have taken two instance variables. One is ID, which is of integer type. Another one is name, which is of string type. And there is a method display that will print the values of these two variables. This democons1 is the main class name because inside it the main method is written. Inside the main method, we have created an object S of the student class, and using the object S, we have called this display method. So here inside this two variables, ID and name, we have not given any value. As I have explained in my previous lecture that the student object here will be called, the student object will be created here in this statement, and here in this part the default student constructor will be called, which will initialize the object upon its creation. That means this default constructor will initialize the instance variables ID and name. Now in my previous lecture, I have shown you an example where I have shown you that the instance variables which are of integer types were being initialized with all zeros. Now here there is an instance variable ID which is of integer type. So ID will contain 0 after this program is executed. But name is not a variable which is of integer type. Rather, name is a string type variable. In all these cases, when we are using string type variables or any reference variables, a null value will be assigned into it if you are not giving any values into them, and if you are using the default constructor in the object creation statement. That means the default constructor that is being used in the object creation statement will initialize the object upon its creation. That means it will initialize the integer variables with zeros, or any kind of numeric variables with zeros, or floating point zeros, that means 0 0.0 like this. Or if it is a string type variable, it will assign it with a null value. If it is a reference variable, then also it will assign a null value into it. That means this program should give you 0 in case of ID and null in case of name. So let's execute the program to see the output. As you can see here that the output is just as I told. The first output is 0 for ID, then a space is printed, and then the null output is given for the name, which is a string variable. So this is a wrap for today. Today we have learned about this keyword garbage collection finalize method, and also we have learned about a new feature of constructors. We will be using this constructor concept more and more in upcoming Java lectures. There you will easily understand how much the constructor concept is important in Java, and how much easy to use this constructor concept in any Java application programs. Thank you for listening to today's lecture. See you in the next lecture.